You're watching TVC News. After 21 years of democracy, Nigerians are still clamoring for true liberty, transparency, economic opportunities, and uninterrupted power supply. But what are the major indicators and actors that will determine the sustainability of the nation's democratic process in the next 3 years?
Nigerians, like many Africans, still believe strongly in democracy. Even though the gap between the rich and the poor still exists, the never-say-die spirit of Nigerians is still very much present. After 21 years of uninterrupted democracy, it is time to take stock before setting foot into the future.
One would say that it's a potpourri of good and bad. But one would have wished that the good would have outstripped, the bad.
I fear for the future of the economy. In some aspects, things are actually looking up. But largely, if we are going to judge, the larger part of the whole system seems not to be doing fine at all. So for the common man, I'm afraid that, it's just every man for himself, God for all of us.
Whether we like it or not, there have been some appreciable level of progress. It may not be entirely where we ought to be or where we have loved to be, but at least judging from the time of the military till now, 1998, we'll see some measure of progress have been made.
Since 1999, Nigerians have gone to the poll on 6 occasions. In all of these elections, cases of vote buying, ballot snatching and stuffing, disenfranchisement, child voting, voting by proxy and other electoral malpractices trailed the system. The judiciary that the common man looks up to has been facing its own troubles, thus leading to glitches in the dispensation of justice.
Autonomy is good, but the best of judiciary must really mean let us properly remunerate our judicial officers. They must be set as comparatively high public service standards that, the possibility of corruption will not even be there.
Despite the uncertainties for the future, there also goes on. Attention now shifts to the next 3 years and what the focus should be.
One would expect that in the next 3 years, one would look forward to a Nigeria where things work. But let each regime say, okay, we're handling power. This is our concentration. And then maybe for the 4 years or 8 years of that regime, they make sure that the power sector is fixed.
Now, we must create an enabling environment for development where there can be a link between development and employment.
Until the attitude of the people led by leadership changes, I think we may not see light at the end of the tunnel.
While the citizens await the manifestation of this noble aspiration for a true nation to emerge from the rubbles of uncertainties that currently prevails, leaders at all levels of government have been heard to take to heart that power is only but for a time. Ayomide Ajayigbe, TVC News, Ado-Ekiti.
All right, now the electoral process remains the most viable method of transfer of power from one regime to the other in the democratic dispensation. And ensuring credible and transparent elections has been one of the major problems of Nigerian politics. Parties must improve their internal democracy, while political leaders must inspire faith by implementing the Electoral Act that governs the conduct of elections. Parties and candidates must be able to campaign and voters to cast their ballots free from illegal influence, intimidation, or violence. Now the country needs a new and strategic approaches to reform its political culture. All right, joining me here in the studio is our political correspondent, Ayo Zubakun. Ayo, it's good to have you join me right now.
Thank you. It's a pleasure to be here.
Exactly. And from Abuja, our Deputy Bureau Chief, Femi Akonde, is also joining me from there. Now, Femi, good afternoon. It's good to have you join me right now.
It's good to be here, Mike.
Great. But let me start with Ayo. You have covered elections since 1999 until now. You have in fact, when it comes to understanding and predicting the permutation of how things will be and all of that. You've done that a lot of times, even on the show and so on. What would you say, or which of the elections from 1999 to 2003 to 2007, 2011, 2015, and 2019, which of the election would you say stands out amongst the rest?
Thank you, Mike. In the last 21 years of straight democracy, since 1999, we've had the electoral umpire, that's INEC, conducting different elections, starting from the time of Chief Ephraim Akpata, Abel Gubadia, from Abel Gubadia to Maurice Iwu, from Maurice Iwu to the man that just left, Atahiru Jega, and right now we have the Professor Mahmoud. But the bottom line is that the desperation for power on the part of politicians and the quest to capture power at all costs has made election a kind of, you know, if we are preparing for election in Nigeria, it's close as if we are going to war. It's not something, I tell people that I covered the last election in Ghana, and in Ghana, during election, the day of election, children were going to school, students were going to school, workers were actually going to, coming from their offices and, you know, to vote. Some were going in the morning and they voted first, and, you know, while they were coming, some were coming back from work. So there wasn't anything like a sit at home. There wasn't anything like no movement of a vehicular movement. Everything was like, you know, it's healthy competition. That's here in Ghana. And the election was free and fair. The one that produced Nana Akufo-Addo as the president. But anytime there's election in Nigeria, let me just, in Edo State now, next month there's going to be a primary election. And 22nd of next month, that primary election, and I'm telling you, we've not gotten to the main election by September. But once you see the build-up between even the ruling All Progressive Congress and the People's Democratic Party, you will understand what I'm saying. That
so the challenges are even starting within the party.
Yes, with intra-party politics
before you even talk about
before the umpire, before it goes to general election.
Okay.
So it's in the process within the party. And finally, if I check the courts, you know, most elections they've announced since 1999 till now, and even 2019 to 2023 or 2015 to 2023, the courts have succeeded in faulting most primary election that has been taking place within the political party. That shows you there's a fundamental problem that stems from intra-party politics.
Okay. Now, Femi, let me bring you in here. Like Ayo Zugbakum has said, I was opportune to also cover the South African election 2014 in South Africa, where President Jacob Zuma was recontesting. And just like Ayo said, it was normal everything. Go about your normal duty, go cast your, in fact, it was like a carnival as it is. Now in Nigeria, it's a different ball game altogether. We've started seeing some of the intrigues and some of the troubleshooting in some of the states already, especially in Edo and on those states, because there will be the next election from where we're standing in the next few months. What do you think is the biggest challenge that we have in conducting elections in Nigeria?
Yes, Michael, you know, the electoral process is the most significant yardstick in measuring the progress of any democratic administration. And over time in Nigeria, our democracy and indeed our election has evolved from 1999, the election in 1999, to the election in 2003, to that election in 2007 that the European Union described as the worst they have ever seen anywhere in the world. And then it moved to 2011, 2015, 2019. You know, but over time, if you look at the unique features of these different elections, these are some of the things that has determined how our democracy is being assessed both within the country and indeed internationally. One problem the country has had is coordinating and conducting an election that is seen to be credible, free and fair. On the part of the umpire that is the Independent National Electoral Commission, has not been able to inspire confidence in the voters. Though over time, gradually they are getting to that point. But indeed, everyone agrees that they are not there yet. Again, like Ayo said in the studio, the way political parties coordinate themselves, they have also been an albatross on the Independent National Electoral Commission, and indeed on Nigeria's democracy. There is lack of internal democracy within these political parties. And as it is in Nigeria, elections in most cases are not about ideologies or visions. It's usually a quarrel between political parties, political opponents, and indeed we also see that among supporters of political parties, in most cases it results to violence, ballot box snatching, rigging. Even security operatives have not been able to do a good job in ensuring that the atmosphere for conducting creating that peaceful atmosphere for conducting a credible, free and fair election. And also money politics, the role money plays in Nigeria's electoral space has remained a major problem, and even a big headache for the electoral umpire. Even in most cases, they have set a peg for political parties and politicians, candidates to spend in campaigning and all of that. But you know, how they monitor these finances, how they follow this money has been a major problem for the Independent National Electoral Commission.
Okay.
The political parties have just refused to open their books and to allow INEC oversee judiciously what they are doing.
All right.
Mike?
Okay, Femi, let me put you on hold and bring back Ayo in here. Ayo, the issue of reforms is part of what a lot of people talk about. Intellectuals, even politicians have talked about the issue of reforms and the need to reform areas of the Electoral Act of guiding the conduct of election by INEC. Now, I spoke to the INEC chairman sometime about the areas that people are looking at when it comes to diaspora voting and electronic voting and all of that. He said they already have a template for all of those. Whatever makes elections, in fact, the ideals, when it comes to what the ideals are, they all have the template already, just waiting for the legal framework. Now, just about recently, we heard that INEC is trying to look forward to the possibility of reforming the Electoral Act so that they can be electronic voting by 2021, not including the coming elections anyway. Now, talk to us from that window. How much of that are we going to see?
In 1999, before we went, 2019, before we actually went through the presidential and governorship election in 2013, the electoral reforms actually got to Mr. President. You remember this back and forth between the 8th Assembly led by Abubakar Bukola Saraki and Mr. President, talking about some aspects, controversial aspects. They had to even go to court at a point in time. So at the end of the day, Mr. President ended up not signing that Electoral Act. And we now conducted the 2019 election with the old Electoral Act. Now, moving forward now, it's very pertinent that we have 3 clear years to the next elections, and we should be talking about amending our electoral process. Mike, it's very, very unfortunate that when you see the slow pace and the kind of elementary technology we deploy in our electoral system, you marvel, but is this the Federal Republic
but would you
Nigeria?
blame INEC? Would you blame INEC really? Because they are talking about working within the legal framework, within the powers that they've been given by the National Assembly. As
you know, it's a reflection of the pace at which Nigeria is growing. Because if our electoral system is backward, the development of the country will be stagnated and what have you. Now, I'm telling you, in the 2019 election, we had over 90 political parties that actually participated in that exercise. You could see by the time they get to the collation center, manually, the electoral officer will now deploy a calculator, one by one, political party by political party, the number of registered voters, the number of people that were accredited through the card reader. You were using, in one breath, you are using the card reader. In another breath, you are looking at the manual register to look at the number of registered voters. In another breath, you are looking at the people that actually turned up to vote. And by the time they are tabulating it, this takes hours. This is is 2020. So, Mike, I expect that by the time it is 2023, from the polling units, you don't expect a result sheet that from EC8A, that it is when they drive several kilometers to get to INEC office at the state headquarters that they will start tabulating this thing. Okay. Something must be done to our electoral system.
All right. Now, Femi, let me stay with you on the issue of electronic voting. Some people have kicked against it when it comes to how network service can run or work within their area. And besides that, what access they have and the knowledge they also have in working these things out electronically. What challenges do you foresee as INEC is looking forward to the possibility of beginning or kickstarting electronic voting from 2021?
Yes, Mike, we expect litigations from political parties, civil society organizations, and indeed members of the public. This has been one major challenge anytime INEC is trying to sometimes be innovative or introduce something new into Nigeria's electoral system. People become skeptical. Political parties start throwing accusations here and there, accusing INEC sometimes of bias. And in most cases, INEC is always seen as supporting the government in power, because a lot of people also feel that INEC is not independent as it should be, and as its name suggests, Independent National Electoral Commission. They feel the electoral umpire still has his umbilical cord tied to any administration in power. And again, you know, like the 2019 general election, there was so much talk about a server. INEC, the people said INEC was going to use a server to collate results and all of that. And some experts have been brought in from China to manipulate and hack into that server to change results to favor certain political parties. And I remember even asking the INEC chairman during one of the daily briefings in the events leading to the general election about all of that. But, you know, at the end of the day, the matter of the server was put to rest. But what INEC made us understand is that, their system, electronic and the IT system is tamper-proof, and they have the best IT experts on ground who have installed all of these things and would ensure that, yes, it is devoid of any influence from any external body. But, you know, now INEC is beginning to suggest that that they will soon pilot an electronic voting, and maybe from 2021, that is next year, one of the off-season elections will be used to test run that electronic voting. And if that is successful and are judged to be successful by all stakeholders, that includes political parties, then moving forward in the next election, 2023, we can then say goodbye to the manual way of voting that has slowed down the system. And then maybe the country, our democracy, would again step up to the plate and begin to measure with the likes of other advanced democracies around the world.
Okay.
Right?
All right. Thank you, Femi. Ayo, you said earlier that this is 2020. This is 2020. We are here already. We can't be running things as if we were in the state of nature or in the 70s, as the case may be. But the point there is, in the most advanced country of the world, or countries of the world, we certainly have not forgotten the controversy in the 2016 election, the US election, where Russia was accused of meddling, hacking into or interfering in elections, in the US election. Now, that is an electronic voting process where it is advanced. Back here in Nigeria, when it comes to capacity, certainly technology and all of that, logically, or maybe in common sense, one would say that Nigeria may not belong to be advanced as some of those other countries may be when it comes to technology. But talk to us about the threats from that, or the fears or anxiety from that window, where Nigerians or voters will say these things are also prone to manipulation.
Mike, a journey of 1,000 miles, they said, begins with a step. If you remember when the card reader was introduced in 2015, if you go to where Mr. President voted in his Ogbia local government in Otueke, that the former president of Nigeria, he tried the first time, he tried the second time, and he had to fill an incident form before he could actually exercise his franchise. And the system all over the country that time, it was not as encouraging, but INEC kept at it. They kept reconfiguring the card reader, and today is almost perfect. It's near perfect. 70%, I will give it according to the 2019 election. Still some flaws here and there, but it will keep improving. Now, if we introduce this, Mike, I'm telling you, whatever may be the flaws, the initial fears of people, but we have to start with something. We can't afford this system, this kind of system, to sustain it. It's quite retrogressive, Mike. Okay.
Now, Femi, before I let you go now, INEC's ability to deregister some political parties, some analysts said it was an indication that INEC is beginning to muster the courage and the guts that it is originally meant to be. Is that what you see? Do you see that going forward when it comes to INEC putting its foot down, especially in the area of prosecuting election offenders?
Yes, INEC is empowered by the Constitution, Section 225A of the 1999 Constitution, as amended, to deregister political parties that do not meet certain criteria set by INEC, and INEC has done just that. Some political party took INEC to court, and just recently this week, INEC was victorious in court at the Federal High Court in Abuja, where Justice Taiwo said that indeed what INEC did is constitutional. INEC has that power in the Constitution, enshrined in the Constitution, to deregister political parties. So it looks like, yes, INEC is beginning to put its foot on the ground. And even civil society organizations, if you look at the build-up to the 2009 general election just last year, gave INEC thumbs up. They seem impressed with the way INEC was going about reforming the electoral process and making the whole thing look credible and winning the confidence of the electorate. But now people are saying that we should cut INEC some slack, that maybe attention should begin to shift to the state independent electoral commissions across the country. A lot of these states independent electoral commission do not if you look at the way they conduct elections, local government elections and state legislative elections, and some other state elections, a lot of these elections are not even in conformity with best democratic principles, if you look at it. So most of the infraction we have in our electoral process as it stands today, a lot of these take place in the states. The State Independent Electoral Commission coordinates the process.
All right, we have to leave you here now. Femi Akonde, Deputy Bureau Chief Abuja, thank you so much for talking to us. And Senior Correspondent Ayo Zubakun, thank you very much as well for your time on the program.